One here for the invocation? Justin, yes, thank you. Could you please give the invocation?
Madam Mayor, Council, everyone, good evening. Word of wisdom this evening from the Proverbs. The lot is cast into the lap, but every decision is from the Lord. So seemingly random events, like rolling of die, are under his control, and so we rightly seek his wisdom and his help. Would you please pray with me? God, our maker and ruler, we praise you for your power, because all things came into being by your hand, and we praise you for your wisdom, because you guide and direct and rule all things by your perfect plan. And we thank you that you show your goodness and mercy every day in our lives and in our city. As we look for your blessing tonight upon the work of this council, I pray that you would help everyone to see their need for the wisdom of their Creator. Give us an appropriate honor and appreciation for your purposes so that we would humble ourselves to seek your ways. In many respects, our community is in a time of transition through retirements, upcoming elections, and new appointments. So I pray for understanding and the ability to make right choices, choices that would bring about a true love of neighbor and the prosperity and safety of our community. We acknowledge that these things are in your hand to give, and so we ask. And as always, I pray that you would grant wisdom tonight for the decisions at hand. Grant all this for tonight's work, but also for the days and weeks ahead. I ask in the name of Christ our Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So now we'll officially call this regular meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Borneman,
Here.
Monroe, Ross, Parker,
Here.
Busker,
Here.
Shadle,
Here.
Misick is absent, Barr.
Here.
And if you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Barr. Item number 1 is the approval of the agenda. Is there such a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Item number 2 is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on April 3rd, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
A motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Barr. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Public comments. Was there anything signed in?
I believe they were, Mayor. I'm sorry I didn't grab it.
We'll start with Ellen Nowicki. You have 3 minutes, Ellen.
My name is Alan Nowicki. I'm from 1545 West Demeter Drive. I'm here to speak on the plat from Park Partners. I've got a handout because it's hard to be limited to 3 minutes. This is almost identical to the plat that was handed out, or that was not approved in 2021. It was rejected by the Zoning Board of Appeals, not recommended by the Planning Commission, and not recommended by the staff, including the former Community Development Director. Why? Why would that be? Well, there's some data from the comprehensive plan that kind of gives us a hint here. Of course, the comprehensive plan costs thousands of dollars. It was study groups. There's hundreds of hours into that. First is on top there by the pink dots, that shows you the price, the median price of owner-occupied homes. In Freeport, it's $92,000. Rockford, it's $157,000. That's the median value. That's what an affordable home would be in Freeport. These will not be affordable homes. They will be luxury homes, high up. Then in the lower table, under housing demands, housing unit occupancy rate. You can see there, that's the orange dot. Since 2000, that's been falling, and it has continued to fall all the way through 2023. A little lower down in that table is the demand for new units based on household growth, minus 226. Okay, annualized demand, 0. Okay, you can support this development, but there's no guarantee of success. There is no guarantee that they're going to sell those units. This may be another unfinished condo development. Okay, it's highly likely. The Fox Hollow development, just on the other side of Crape Park. Okay, lots of empty lots there. I believe only 2 of the condo lots are full. Okay, then on the back page are the goals from the one of the chapters there. Develop an interconnected system of sidewalks and bike paths through the city. Okay, and then ensure Freeport transportation system provides safe and efficient access for all modes of transportation. This plat has no sidewalks in it, none, not any. If you allow this development to go forward, what's the purpose of having a comprehensive plan? Okay, no sidewalks, none, not even on Demeter Drive. They're going to add 32 units, okay, on a road that only has 19 houses. You know, there's minimum size yards, front and back. This thing is going to be intrusive, it's ugly. There's a road on the border next to a home that's been there for years. The current owners have been there longer than Mr. Chesney's owned the lot. The stormwater drainage issues are still unresolved. There's no outlet for the detention basin. What's the rush?
Mr. Nowicki, your time is up. Thank you.
Please vote no.
Ed Klein, I'm not sure what were you speaking for or against a particular?
Well, I'd just like a comment.
Is it on an agenda item?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. On both this park preserve Ed Klein from Lily Creek Road, just outside of the city limits, but I've lived here for many, many years, and I certainly appreciate what is here. We really have the foundation of a great city. I am so honored to be here when you're going to be swearing in some new police officers and firefighters who are just the bedrock of this community. It's amazing. I had no idea that there was this kind of support. The 3 things I want to touch on are the park preserve, the wastewater treatment plant, and the new city manager. The problem with the subdivision, in addition to what Alan was talking
Mr.
about,
Klein, you can only speak on agenda items.
that is 14.
Yeah, you named off several things that were not on the agenda.
The wastewater plant's on the agenda, number 15. And the new, okay. I'm sorry, then I won't say anything about the new city manager.
The city manager item is not on the agenda, as well
Okay.
as items 14, or I'm sorry, the bids regarding the wastewater treatment plant. Those are not going to be addressed, correct, City Manager Bucus? Those are being taken off.
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
We're asking council to postpone action on those 2 items, number 14 and number 15. Excuse me, number 15 and number 16. And we'll have-
Oh,
excuse
okay.
me, just number 15.
So the only item, sir, that can be addressed right now during this open session is the Park Partners matter. However, there is a public comment at the end of the meeting,
end.
and you can bring up the other 2 items at
Okay.
that time.
Thank you very much. Part of what I think we have to think about, and I made this mention at the Planning Commission, what is our vision for this city? How do we...
Sorry to interrupt. Could we just restart his time? Because it's at, he was like 30 seconds in when he got interrupted. I just figured just restart it out of fairness.
I think everybody in this room loves Freeport. That's why we're here. And we have to decide as a community, what's our vision? Where are we going with this? And obviously, if you look around, there's problems. I mean, you can drive around the city and you know there are some neighborhoods that are just horrible. There are some very beautiful neighborhoods too. And obviously, the one neighborhood that the park preserve would go into is one of the really nice ones. But as far as vision goes, what are we going to take care, do we take care of this whole community, not just here or there? And I believe there are minds in the city that are very much, good, aggressive, that really want to do something. And so we really need to support those efforts. What kind of upsets me in regards to that is that there's the communication. And I know you're trying, you've hired a communication director. I don't think the communication is always here that we need. We don't really hear, what's actually going on in the city. The Park Preserve, subdivision came up 2 years ago. It kind of disappeared, and all of a sudden it just shows up again. And then there's not enough time even to think about it. There are a ton of different problems with that preserve, and what has happened so far is we've just pushed them off. We've said, okay, we like that this is going to fulfill the regulations, the ordinances. However, there's these issues, and we're just going to say, well, we'll work with them later. I don't see how you can do that. I really think that there's issues that need to be resolved before you say, okay, this plat is okay, and somehow we're going to fix the rest of these things moving forward. If you read Mr. Bukas's original memo, he definitely said there were 3 things that needed to be done. And one of them was landscaping, one of them was the water problem, and I don't remember the third one, I don't have it with me, but I think there were very solid suggestions. Those have not been addressed, and I'm not sure why, because there's been plenty of time. The other one comment that's really stunning, I heard that this project is going to fit right into the neighborhood, that there's condos across the street, and because there's condos there, it's okay to have condos here. And I disagree. There's a long, wide street in between those 2 places. And the neighborhood that these condos are planned in is not at all like what's across the street. It's a total, Demeter Drive is a total different place. And I think if you drive down there, you know that. So my bottom line is, I'm really asking you this, to think about just putting this off for now. Let's have more meetings. Let's have more discussion. Let's find out really what, the best way for this community to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mary Ann Garvins, if you could please stick with the agenda item. And if you want to talk about something else at the end, after the meeting's done, that's fine.
So, I don't know about you, but we had a lot of rain this year. And that's an empty lot right now. And the water pulls up on it because it's clay. And it's uphill from Crape Park. Anybody see how much Crape Park flooded this summer because of the rain? A lot. Just watch. Standing water on that lot, 4 weeks. So where's it going to drain? Down at Crape Park. We had 8 inches. The water came up across the street from the Gladewood Bridge. We had another 4 inches on that. It came up to the edge of the Gladewood Bridge by the river. So you cover up all that permeable ground, which is clay. That does not absorb water. It runs off. And everything follows gravity. It goes downhill. So you're just asking for big problems there. The other thing is it's only 1 lane. Both sides on Demeter, there is no shoulder. And you have curves and hills, which make it dangerous in the winter. So if there's no room between the yards and no shoulder, how people are going to be coming back and forth, plus going into Crape Park, that's very steep too, going in and out in the wintertime. Who are the owners and investors in this development? It needs to be disclosed because there are a lot of our upper echelon people. But the east side, they used to be a preeminent neighborhood, and that's where development occurred. And the flooding just continued to increase. State law says pay fair pre-flood market value. They're being offered $800 for their properties, whose damage was aggravated by the city. There's been no relocation expense, which is supposed to be done. They're supposed to get help for getting comparable housing to what they had. So is that what we're looking for the existing owners and neighbors? By the park partner thing, I think having State Representative Chesney and State Senator Stewart creates at least implies some insider dealing, perhaps? Just saying.
Thank you, Mary Ann. And I apologize, Molly, I can't read your last name. Doolittle, if you'd like to have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Molly Doolittle, 1340 West Stover Street in Freeport. And I think the voters have spoken for changes in several wards recently in the election, including Alderwoman at Large, who represents all Freeport residents. And I think we need to vote on important issues, including the one that we're talking about tonight, until the new members are seated May 15th, less than 30 days away. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe, Candace, your topic will have to wait until, okay, thank you. Dennis Meyer, you'd like to have 3 minutes?
Good afternoon. I'm Dennis Myers. I live at 1448 West Demeter Drive. I'd like to say, let's review this project. The Zoning Commission rejected this project on many issues, on several grounds. They were overridden and the City Council moved forward. Some members of the Zoning Commission quit because they weren't listened to. The City Council meetings attended by the opposition group raised many objections. We brought them up to the City Council. We asked the city engineer. He had no knowledge to specific questions. We asked him about the hydraulics. We asked him about the sewer system. We asked him what the priorities were for putting the sewer system in. He had no knowledge, which I find strange. We had an alderman at large stated water or traffic concerns weren't a problem. He isn't certified to make that assessment. I have seen no certified professional, to my knowledge, has been hired to do a hydraulic study or a traffic study. Freeport Park Board has not been informed of the planned projects that you're going to do. The City Council brought up a vote on the project when they knew 2 opposing aldermen were absent. This vote tonight is prior to newly elected alder people being seated. Without professional study of hydraulics, I see future litigation being a possible problem. I think more study on this project is needed. I suggest you postpone this vote until you have talked to the park board and have traffic and hydraulic professionals assessed. And wait till the new aldermen are seated. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, according to ordinance, we have the topic of one particular subject being 6 people be able to speak. So we will allow the last spot for Todd Wiegans, and the other ones that have signed up, they're welcome to speak at the end of the meeting.
Good evening. I'm Todd Wiegans. I am one of the people who are on the development team for Park Partners. So I am one of the investors that somebody asked about. I also live directly across the street from the property. The property it's properly zoned as R5 for condominium development, and the plat's been prepared in accordance with your ordinances, Chapter 1484, dealing with condominiums. The development received a 6-0 affirmative vote from the Planning Commission last Thursday night, and all required building setbacks have been met or exceeded. We recognize that the city review will result in additional comments to be addressed, including the need to submit final improvement plans, including drainage plans and hydraulic studies that are currently being performed by Fairgraham and Associates, landscaping plans, And finally, architectural drawings that'll all be required to be submitted, reviewed, and approved by city staff prior to any construction and/or building permits. Also, we need to submit these plans to state agencies in charge of water and sewer utilities. I know the record is in there from Thursday night and included a letter to the Planning Commission that I had that talked about 4 key issues: density, the fact that the street is a private street, the issue of parking on-street, off-street, and street radii. This project is the same density as the 2 nearest condominium developments in the city of Freeport, that being Parkview Gardens and the Edge of Meadows. We know some of our neighbors oppose this project. We respect the right to do so, and we've tried to work with them. We remain open to working with them, but unfortunately, they have chosen just a public negative campaign. The project as planned will meet a much-needed housing option for the community. Some of the things said were true regarding home values and regarding valuations. We hope to improve that situation. On the issue of bike paths and sidewalks, we do not include sidewalks, but we do include a path that connects these residences to the preeminent walking path in the city of Freeport, that which connects to Crape Park. So we won't have pedestrians on Demeter Drive as been intimated. And this is a good transition between large residential lots, the commercial entity that's on the other side of Park Boulevard, the Freeport Club, the condominiums that exist north of there. So we feel it is properly located between properties of mixed
Mr. Wiggins,
use,
your time
and
is
it will
exceeded.
provide some much-needed tax revenues. We respectfully request your support for this project.
Thank you. The remainder of the public comments will be heard at the end if they choose to stay. We'll move on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is considered to be routine in nature unless there's a member of the council who'd like to have something removed for further discussion. The consent agenda consists of approving to receive and place on file the board and commission minutes from the Finance Committee of the Whole dated November 14th and 21st, 2022, the building permit reports from March 23, and the police department reports from March 23, as well as the finance bills payable in the total of $1,754,818.13, as well as the approval of payroll for pay period ending April 8th, 2023, in the total of $570,841.22. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
A motion made by Alderman Monroe, seconded by Alderman Busker. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Barr.
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle. The motion passes 7-0.
Okay, can you hear that? Chief Summers, if you could join me. Manager Bucus, you want to join as well? You know, Matt just absolutely loves attention. Can you tell? But I truly believe that you give honor where honor is due, and Matt is very deserving of this time that we can just give him a little praise for all that he's done. So, you want to come up? No. Okay. So anyway, on behalf of the city, I'd like to read the following proclamation. Whereas Chief Matthew Summers began his career with the Freeport Police Department in 1995 and has served the city and its citizens for 28 years. And whereas Chief Summers has served in roles such as Shift Sergeant, Administrative Lieutenant, Operations Lieutenant, and Deputy Chief of Police. And whereas within his career, he has also served in a variety of teams and units, including Detective Bureau, Community Policing, and Emergency Response Teams. And whereas he was appointed to the Chief of Police in 2019 and has been instrumental in implementing crime-fighting technology like the license plate readers, ShotSpotter, our pilot residential doorbell camera program, and Tip 411. And whereas Chief Summers has led the department by utilizing compassion, expertise, and professionalism. And whereas the City of Freeport is grateful to have had such a dedicated public servant that valued his community to lead the Freeport Police Department. Now therefore, I, Jody Miller, do hereby recognize April 21st, 2023 as Chief Matt Summers Day in Freeport to honor and thank him for protecting the citizens of the City of Freeport, and also on the 21st will also be his birthday. So thank you, Matt.
Okay. Well, I can't really add more to that proclamation than what the mayor already read, but Chief Summers has been with us since 1995, and he has moved up the ranks and became interim chief back in 2019, and then became the chief in November of 2019. And through his leadership, he came up with the various programs that we have in place now to help try to fight crime in our neighborhoods, including, as the mayor said, the ShotSpotter, which is now called Sound Thinking, our doorbell program, and Tip 411 as well. Matt, he went to, nobody really knows, but he went to FBI Academy, and he wanted to be an FBI agent when he first joined the police department, I found out tonight. And so he did manage to go to the academy, but never became an FBI person. But he did go to the prestigious Northwest University School of Command and Staff Police Academy, and was graduate there too, I believe in 2017? Okay, hey, I got a good memory. I wasn't here back then, but I remember him going. Matt is a good example of what a good person is. He's also a good example of how to stay physically fit. Hey, you're in better shape than I'm in. Matt gets up every morning, no matter what the weather's like, and he walks 5 miles a day. And I know this morning at 4 o'clock he was out walking. I won't tell you why I know, but I know he's out walking at 4 o'clock this morning. Matt's neither a Northsider Cub, or he's neither a Southsider White Sox fan or a Milwaukee Brewer fan. He's a downstater. He's a St. Louis fan. Go Cardinals. Matt, congratulations on a great career, and we wish you the best on your future as well. And I've got a couple of things for you. But you're going to have to hold, here, Mayor, you're going to have to hold this. I'd like to, you can hold that. I'd like to give you a certificate, I guess, of your appreciation of serving in the police department for 28 years. Congratulations on your retirement, April 21, 2023. For over 28 years, you have served the Freeport Police Department and community with honor, dedication, and selflessness. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Matt, congratulations.
Thank you. There's so many people to thank. The support from Randy, the council, the entire time I've been at the police department. I would say my parents are here. I've had their support the entire time. Sorry, I've been thinking about Dr. Seuss all day. He said, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. Well, he's full of crap because he's never put a badge on before. Most importantly, 2 guys that couldn't be here, my kids. They know more about the community, and they let me live my dream. left them at home too many times. And I appreciate that. Someday they'll watch this on YouTube and understand. More importantly, all these guys over here, the community is great because of the people that are in the hole at 2 o'clock in the morning fixing a water main break. You saw the guys leave here, no matter what happened, took off. People who answer the phones when you need something. What I know best is the guys at 3 o'clock in the morning that are dead tired with their head on their seat, trying to catch a nap while their buddy's writing a report. Those are the people that make the city great. And listen to them. The new council coming in, listen to them. They know what it takes to make this city great. I can't say enough. I'm so proud just to be here, to wear this uniform for 28 years. I'm going to miss it, and I'm going to make way because you guys are going to swear in some new chiefs tonight. So I appreciate all the time and all the support from everybody.
A moment anyway. Is there anyone here from the Arbor Day? The Arbor Day? Don't think so? Do you want me to read it anyway or just hand it to them when they deliver it to them? Okay, then I will not read that. So we will then move on to our swearing in. So if the new firefighters can join me, and Commissioner Lyman and Chief Miller.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm reading the official commission from the City of Freeport Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, of which I am a member. To all to whom these presents shall come, Daniel Doyle, Alex Gravenstein, and Tanner Knott, having been duly appointed to the office of firefighter in and for the City of Freeport in the County of Stevenson and State of Illinois for the term of from the 19th day of April 2023 until their successors shall have been duly appointed and qualified, are hereby fully authorized and empowered to assume and perform all of the duties of their said office according to the law and ordinances of said city, and all persons are required to respect them in the discharge of their duties. By order of the Board of Police and Fire Commissioners. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, if you could, somebody wants to be the lead spokesperson on this. One of you want to do that?
Go ahead, Alex.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to swear you in, so if you can each raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Daniel Doyle,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of firefighter
of the office of firefighter
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you, Mayor.
As fire chief, it's my pleasure to introduce our 3 new firefighters. They began their 30-year career last Monday. So, just everybody should know they've got 29 years and 51 weeks to go until retirement. So we're looking to have a safe, long, healthy career for the 3 of you, and welcome to the fire department.
And if our 2 new patrol officers could join me?
The official commission of the City of Freeport Board of Fire and Police Commissioners. To all to whom these presents shall come, Riley Tillett and Alejandra Gutierrez, having been duly appointed to the office of patrolman in and for the City of Freeport in the County of Stevenson and State of Illinois, for the term from the 19th day of April 2023 until their successors shall have been duly appointed and qualified, are hereby fully authorized and empowered to assume and perform all of the duties of their said office according to the law and ordinances of said city, and all persons are required to respect them in the discharge of their duties by the order of the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners.
All right. And one of you want to hold this so they can hear you speaking? Okay. All right. And then if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of Illinois. And I will faithfully discharge the duties. The office of patrol officer. According to the best of my ability.
Here's your shield. Your badge number is 156. Patrolman Gutierrez is your shield. Your badge number is 57. I've gotten to know both of these. If you don't know Riley, she was a telecommunicator in our dispatch center. So I've gotten to know her the last 8 months or so. It's going to be a huge loss in there because she was an excellent employee for us. However, it will be a gain out on the street when she becomes a patrolman. Alejandro, I got to know him. I did his background. He came highly recommended, had some great references, and we're really excited. He's also an accomplished soccer player, so apparently he's really good at soccer, so I'd like to see that sometime as well. So congratulations.
Okay, we will move on to item number 9, which is the appointments. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
We have 2 new appointments to the Ethics Commission, Ronald Hayes and Kathy Knodel. We have the appointment of Robert Bush to the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners effective April 30th, 2023. And then we have 4 reappointments effective April 30th, 2023. William Liebman to the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, Stan Zarabel to the Building Commission, Gail Clore to the Firefighters Pension Board, and Jeff Williams to the Police Pension Board.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Ross, seconded by Alderman Parker. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Barr.
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 10 is the second reading of ordinance 2023-21. Could you please read this?
Ordinance adopting revisions to employee handbook.
Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. Annually, the Human Resource Manager and department heads work with the city attorney on any revisions that may be needed to the employee handbook. There were some minor changes made to the handbook this year, and staff's recommending adoption of ordinance 2023-21.
Any discussion, council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Barr.
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle.
Aye.
The ordinance passes 7-0.
And item number 11 is the first reading of ordinance 2023-22. Could you please read this?
Ordinance granting a special use permit to allow the sale of alcoholic liquors at 1521 Southwest Avenue.
Thank you. Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Staff received a special use permit application from Billy Adams Jr. for a restaurant selling alcoholic beverages at 15211 Southwest Avenue. The property is currently zoned B3, Commercial and Wholesale Business District, and it is required for them to apply for a special use permit in order to sell alcoholic beverages. On April 6, 2023, the City of Freeport Zoning Board of Appeals recommended approval of the petitioner's request by a vote of 6-0. And on April 13th, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the petitioner's request by a roll call vote of 6-0 as well. And in line with the Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Commission, staff recommends moving this forward.
Alderman Parker.
Make a motion to move it forward.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Busker. Is there any discussion? And in case anyone's wondering, that
Point of order,
is
Mayor.
Junior's place. I'm sorry, what?
It was Alderman Monroe that seconded that.
Monroe? Okay, sorry about that. So the owner of Junior's place was the, correct?
Yes, correct.
Then if there's no further discussion, we'll move this on to the next regular council meeting. Item number 12 is the first reading of ordinance 2023-23. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending the zoning classification of property commonly known as 1201 West Empire Street. Formerly, it was zoned R6 multiple family to P1 professional use.
Thank you. Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. CFAB Holdings LLC submitted an application on March 7, 2023 for a zoning map amendment for their property located at 1201 West Empire Street to rezone the property from the R6 General Residence District to the P1 Professional Use District. And this property was Freeport Podiatry Services LLC for approximately 20 years at least. During the almost 20 years of service, the Freeport Podiatry Services was operating as a legal non-conforming use within the R6 district. Now that the property has changed ownership, the petitioner would only be allowed to use the property in a substantially conforming way to the podiatry services. And as such, they submitted an application to rezone their property to be able to use it. And what they're planning for would be office use, accounting, like an accounting office, et cetera. And their hearing for their rezoning application was heard on April 6th at the Zoning Board of Appeals, and it was recommended for approval by a vote of 6-0. On April 13th, the Planning Commission heard the petitioner's request, and they recommended approval with a vote of 6-0. And in line with the recommendations of the Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Commission, staff recommends to move this ordinance forward.
Discussion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Busker. Is there any discussion, council?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Director, is there anything that they need to do to the property that, that they have to wait for this approval to be done in order to get business going for them?
Yes, that's exactly what they were doing. They purchased the property, it's my understanding, and they they needed to do this. Typically, this is a typical requirement if they were borrowing money. You know, when you go through a real estate transaction, they want to see the proper zoning for the proposed use. So this was essentially cleaning up the zoning so they can get their business going.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Shadle for the suspension of the rules. Suspension of the rules is non-debatable and must pass by 2/3 majority. Madam Clerk, could you please take the vote, the roll on the suspension only?
Barr.
Aye.
Borneman.
No.
Monroe.
No.
Ross.
No.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle.
Aye.
So I have 3 noes, and 4 yeses. The ayes have it. Oh, that is not 2/3. Thank you very much. It fails.
So the motion stands for moving it to the next council meeting. We'll move on to item number 13, which is the adoption of Resolution 2023-29. Could you please read this?
Resolution authorizing and approving a memorandum of understanding with ASME regarding telecommunications operators.
Thank you. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. What we have tonight is a memorandum of understanding between the city and the ASME unit for our dispatchers, also known as our telecommunicators. Because of some shortages in the telecommunications department, people aren't able to always use their vacation, that sometimes it has to be denied. What this memorandum of understanding is allowing to do is that because we have a maximum number of hours that you can accumulate for vacation, we are going to be temporarily waiving some of the telecommunications hours, vacation hours over 200 hours, if they are denied to use those hours because of operational needs. Once the department reaches a staffing level of 10 members, then this temporary waiver will be rescinded. And so it's staff's recommendation that council approve this resolution. And I'd like to point out that in the resolution itself, I'm looking at the wrong one. That section, the second whereas, the city now wishes to allow telecommunicators to accrue vacation over 200 hours on a temporary basis when vacation is denied due to operational need. There should be a period there, and the remainder until the telecommunications department reaches full staffing level should be stricken. And we did get the ASME's approval on that change, and they did sign the memorandum of understanding. And it's staff's recommendation, as I said, to approve this memorandum of understanding.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Is there, yes?
Just want to clarify that the motion is to approve the resolution as amended.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Barr.
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 7-0.
And item number 14 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-30. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving final plat of Park Preserve Subdivision 1601 South Park Boulevard, submitted by Park Partners LLC.
Thank you. Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Park Partners LLC submitted a plat for Park Preserve condominiums and the associated declarations and bylaws to City Hall on March 22nd. They are attached as Exhibits A and B, and I'm referring to a packet that was available on our website, and it's also been passed out to all council members. So when I'm making reference to exhibits, if you need me to slow down, I can certainly explain. So the plat and associated documents reflect comments that were made by staff from an initial submittal that was dated February 22nd. The proposed project is located at 1601 South Park Boulevard, and in accordance with Section 1484 of the City of Freeport Codified Ordinances, I presented the subject plat and associated documents to the Planning Commission for a public hearing that was held on April 13th at 5:30 in City Council chambers at City Hall. Section 1484 of the City of Freeport Codified Ordinance regulates condominiums. I attach this as Exhibit C for you all to review. Staff has reviewed the subject plat and declarations and found them to be substantially compliant with Section 1484. Staff notified Park Partners that the proposed plat is not in compliance with Section 1484 regarding curve radii. And so the proposed plat has 3 curve radii, which I state below here. 2 of them are 25 feet and 1 of them is 31 feet. Now, during the Planning Commission meeting, the petitioner stated that the plat listed curve radii that were not measured to the center line of the private roadway. And in that Planning Commission meeting hearing, I conceded that they were correct and that the radii do, if you're measuring them to the center line of the road, it is 50 feet. They requested an exception to this rule as part of their Planning Commission meeting. And in order to allow the Planning Commission to make their best decision, I wanted to present them with supporting evidence that would help them make an educated decision on this matter. So in Exhibit D, I presented them a executed letter from Fire Marshal Hillary Brocious, which is regarding fire equipment access within the proposed development. And that's Exhibit D. On Exhibit E, I presented an analysis performed by Fairgram regarding fire equipment access along the proposed development. And finally, on Exhibit F, I have presented to you a final plat of Empire Estates, which is similar in design to the proposed development. Based on the evidence presented, a motion was made at the Planning Commission to approve the plat and associated documents as presented with the above noted exceptions. The motion was seconded, and the Planning Commission, by roll call vote, voted to recommend the approval of the plat by a vote of 6-0 with 1 abstention. And I just want to conclude by saying this report constitutes the report of hearing and action taken by the Planning Commission as required by Section 1484.09 of the City of Freeport Codified Ordinances.
Alderman Borneman.
Has there been a written protest against the plat signed by 20% of the neighboring property owners submitted with your office or the city?
I have not received such and have not been notified of such. So the answer, to my knowledge, the answer is no.
And Clerk Anderson, you had not aware of any such submittal?
There was one sometime back. Whether that still applies, I don't know.
It would, in reference to this proposed condominium plat, have we received any?
Not what went to this Planning Commission, no.
Go ahead. Just recap, a little bit of what you said. There is no issue with the zoning, correct?
This proposed condominium plat is in conformance with the zoning on that lot, yes.
Okay, and there was no issue with a fire truck getting in there? That was all released?
We received the professional opinion from Fire Marshal Brocious. We had a licensed engineer perform analysis, and we also gave an example of a similar plat. So I believe we presented evidence to that effect, and I think that the decision of the Planning Commission reflected the evidence as they
And
looked at it.
did you say the Planning Commission was 6-0 in favor?
Yes, with 1 abstention.
And then I know there's been some discussion on the density, so I just looked up a few things. Per unit versus how many acres are on a particular area. And in comparison for the Park Preserve, the Parkview Garden Apartments, and the Edge of the Meadows, they are all within, the most dense was the Parkview Garden Apartments at 0.187 per unit, the Park Reserve at 0.193 per unit, and the Meadows at 0.203. So very close. To your knowledge, was there any issue with Parkview Garden or the Edge of the Meadows?
Yeah, I wasn't there for that. I wasn't there at that time, but I would say, I guess probably not, but I wasn't there to make that decision. Does that make sense? You know, yes, as far as I know, I would say yes.
Okay. Alderman Parker, did you have something?
looking into the water runoff from this place? What was their outcome of that?
We did, and I'm glad you asked that, Alderman Parker. That was discussed, and I believe it was even came up in public comment today. One thing we stated was that up for discussion today, or up for actually approval today, is the condominium plat. So essentially what you're deciding on is whether this property could have the 32 units as presented, and there's still going to be work to be done that's going to approve the stormwater drainage plan. So essentially, that I would say that that's not a matter at hand of the decision being made today, and that there's still going to be work done from the developer regarding that.
So that would have to be taken care of before the construction can start?
Correct, and I do want to make very clear here that just because you have a condominium plat, that does not give you the right to start constructing the project. There's quite a bit of work that still has to be done in engineering, and in design, engineering, and permitting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Monroe, did you have something?
Not yet, Mayor.
Alderman Shadle?
With, as fast as this came back, I think I would make a motion to table this for next month.
I'll second it.
Is there
Madam Clerk, would
comment
you-
allowed on that?
Sure, why not? Yeah, there's discussion on that.
So what are you hoping to get accomplished between now and the next meeting? Specifically, what would you expect for us to know?
Next month,
Mm.
I meant, not next week.
Okay, so next month, like, what are you expecting to have, look at that would?
I personally was gonna try to make a few more phone calls to realtors and at least one more home builder to see if these numbers hash out. What I've seen so far, they don't.
What specific numbers are you talking about?
The two builders I talked to, were telling me that the cost to build these units would be, $250 to $350 a square foot. The other builder said $350,000 to $400,000 cost to build. Realtors that I talked to said that the purchase price of a condo that they could readily sell would be in the 250 to 275 range. And those numbers don't jive.
So, one of my, comments there, if I could respond, is like, what are you, we don't have any of the architectural designs of anything about this, so, like, what information are they using to make those determinations, and what information are you using with regards to, like, what you're cross-referencing from the applicant?
Well, I've got nothing from the applicant other than the fact that he said that they've got a contractor that could do it, with no numbers involved. And that's where I feel like I need to do a little homework on it.
Director Duckman, is that something that we discuss in this?
Well, I would say, from my perspective, I'm not analyzing the cost to build, but certainly Alderman Shadle, if he wants to get that information on his own, can do that. But from my review is going to be on what's going to be required by the ordinance. So that's, on my review, I wouldn't be looking at the cost to build or what the potential sale price would be.
Alderman Parker?
Well, my opinion is what it costs to build and the sale price, that's the private owner's business. That's none of our business. So if they've got somebody that's gonna do it, they know the price, and that's between them and the contractor, not us, my opinion.
Alderman Shadle?
My concern with that is every day I look out at a development that's got a foundation sitting there that's unfinished, and the complex is bankrupt because we didn't take care of this.
We didn't, or the owner didn't?
The owner
Okay.
didn't take care of it. we didn't take care of it, whoever didn't, but if we've got an ability to say these numbers don't match, then we need to step in on that, so we don't end up with a half-built condo development because it didn't work.
Alderman Warneman?
So I guess first off, if it's, well, for one, the issue with that is, my thought on that is, the ordinance at issue right now requires 3 things from the applicant to present in a plat. And they presented that information to a hearing, to the planning commission, and evidence was presented on that. The planning commission made their recommendation, and then we are presented with the evidence that was there. So none of those 3 things, though, I guess my point is, has to do with the pricing and likelihood of success of the project. So while I understand it's an important consideration, it's not really something that's even before us to consider. And another issue is, one of my biggest concerns is the density, but if we're saying that they're not going to be able to sell all the units, doesn't that alleviate the density issue? I mean, is that necessarily a bad thing?
Depending on what gets finished and what doesn't.
Sure. But I guess to continue, so if the applicant has met all the conditions outside of this exception that we're requesting for, and they come to us, and then we say, well, you met the conditions, we understand there's this road radius thing, but that's been shown that it's really not detrimental or cause for public safety concern. But at the end of the day, we just don't like your project because we don't think it's going to be successful, so we're not going to approve it even though you've met the requirements of the ordinance. To me, that's not what we're being asked to do, and I feel like we're trying to become the CEO of this company, who, if they're willing to go out and do this and put up the funds to do it, kind of with Mr. Parker of, well, who are we to say you shouldn't do this if it's otherwise meets the standards that we are set to consider?
Alderman Barr?
So I too look out, excuse me, out my backyard and look at an empty or unfinished condo development. I think the target market is different for this, or at least that's my understanding. I'm not sure whether that's a good or bad thing. It's not for me to say, and I think I would agree with Alderman Borneman and Parker. I'm a little concerned that we would say to a new business that's wanting to open up in downtown Freeport, hey, sounds great, but I don't think your food's going to sell. So, we're a little hesitant giving you the approval because we just don't think it's a good business, if they've met all the requirements that they're supposed to. But again, that's just my thoughts, so.
So I think there is a motion, but I don't know if it's the correct terminology. It shouldn't be tabled. The motion would be to move it to the next meeting?
Postponed.
Postponed until, actually not even the next meeting. I think Alderman Shetto, you wanted to postpone it to the second a month, so the second meeting in May, I think is what.
May 17th, you're saying?
No, that's not correct.
That's the second meeting.
No, it's the 15th.
15th. I meant it 2 days off.
But the first meeting is the 1st. So,
Shoot for the first.
Can I make a point?
yes.
So under the ordinance, this council is required to make a decision on this within 60 days from the planning commission's hearing. That's how I look at it. So we need to keep that in mind too. I think we'd be within that, but.
So the motion on the floor right now is just whether if there's a majority to move it. And then we can come back to if it doesn't pass, then we come back to the resolution.
Correct. So just to clarify, Alderman Shadle, your motion is to postpone discussion on this topic until which meeting in May, I guess? You had mentioned 30 days, that's why I suggested the second. The May 17th meeting.
That's still not correct.
15th, that was my
15th,
mistake.
sorry. And then Alderman Ross, I believe you gave the second on that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so is
that's
there
the
any
motion
more
right now.
discussion on postponement? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the
Actually,
postponement? Yes,
I
go
do
ahead.
have one. I guess for council, is it, I mean, you clarify this? Like, are we to be taking additional evidence and considering evidence that wasn't presented at the hearing for this decision on this plat?
The council should be considering the evidence that's on the record from the planning commission.
So doesn't this open us up to litigation and civil liability if we start just taking in clearly, I mean, it's record now where Mr. Shadle's going to go out, get evidence, make his determination on the plat based off of evidence from outside the record?
It's potentially a concern. Certainly, I think there's always extraneous, people have their own personal opinions that are in their head that they've gathered or heard from wherever they hear it from. Maybe not necessarily as formal as going out and then doing your own homework and then presenting it to the council. But everyone comes with their own information sometimes in their head. So to that extent, that's always going to be an issue there. But I think what Alderman Shadle is presenting or proposing to potentially do with doing some homework and then I assume to present it to the council, his findings there, I think does raise some concerns because that would not be limiting it to the record that was presented at the Planning Commission.
And I get his concerns. I'm not saying they're unreasonable. I'm just saying in this context, I don't think it's appropriate to do what's being requested in this motion. So that's my.
At the end of the day, the motion is postponed, then you vote yes.
So, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the motion that's on the floor right now?
Barr.
No.
Borneman.
No.
Monroe.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Parker.
No.
Busker.
No.
Shadle.
Yes.
The vote is 3-4, so the motion to postpone fails.
So now we go back to the adoption of the resolution. So more discussion on the adoption of the resolution. Alderman Monroe.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Thank you. From the last time this came before us, we've asked for additional information. We've asked for additional guidance as far as the environmental aspects of this, the water aspects of this. And what I see is exactly what several other aldermen voted no on before. And yet now we've got a steadfast, we're going to vote differently this time with the same information. I'm hoping it's because they had more time to think about it and not because of outside influence. I'm very concerned about this project from a lot of standpoints. Number one, they've done nothing to address the number of units. And every time it comes back, well, we're probably going to do less than 32. But yet, here we are still looking at a plot that shows 32 units. And I think from an environmental standpoint, I think from a water management standpoint, I'm not sure that we've been given enough information to really make a reasonable determination on what to do with this project. And we've all got a lot of concerns, and I think, rushing this through is the reason why, we're kind of sitting here going, we're not sure what to do. And we're rushing it through again. And it was exactly why the majority of the council last time voted no to move it. And we brought it back, and I wanted to give them a chance to kind of alleviate some of the concerns that we had. And none of that's happened. And it's been how many months? I mean, we're talking over a year. And we're sitting here again with the same information, no more information, no conversations between the neighborhood and the development. And, I still think we have concerns about if the city is going to end up footing the bill for part of the water and sewer. That's not been laid out. And that is what we're precisely sitting in these chairs to do, is to hold accountable people that don't have a plan, that want to execute a plan in our city. We have to protect all of the residents of the city and make sure it's done according to the laws. I mean, we worry every week about how much water is putting salt or chlorine into the river. And here we are sitting, okay to push this through. And I'm just asking that we take a second, we think about this, and we not rush to judgment. We've got 60 days, as the alderman said, about waiting from the point of the date of the passing of the commission. But I think we still need to get the answers. And I've got a lot of concerns, and I know a lot of people in the community have the same concerns. And I'll leave it at that.
Director Duckman, don't the answers come in the different steps that is required of anyone that's doing development?
That is correct. And any developer who's going to come in to any community, I mean, I've heard this argument made before from your side, is that they're going to want to go through and get their plat approved first. It just wouldn't make sense for them to do the engineering and design and then permit for something they couldn't build through the platting process. So this is a vital first step that's going to allow them to go through and then get the final permitting for stormwater, water service, and also sanitary. So this is a vital first step in that process, and certainly if your concerns are realized, they wouldn't be able to build it. Does that make sense? This is a vital first step in the process, and other communities are going to follow this similar process as well. So I just want to answer your question. I guess that's the best way for me to answer your question, is that your concerns are going to be addressed later on if this gets passed today.
Alderman Bornum? Oh,
Mr. Monroe can follow up.
Alderman Monroe?
Yeah, so will we have another chance to make a vote based on the changes to the plat and any other environmental concerns that come up?
Yes, if there's a change to a plat, it would be an amendment to the plat. And if there's a change to the plat, that's going to be a vote. It's going to come to council as an amendment to the plat.
Can I rephrase the question differently then? So if they come back with the same exact plat, they don't have to ask us anymore. This is a vote?
No, I disagree with that as well, because what's going to happen is when you have a condominium plat, this is what we have here, they have to bring actual as-built drawings. That's per statute. That's also in our ordinance as well. So when they say, okay, I'm going to build Unit 5, and then they're going to come build Unit 5, they're going to say, here's the as-built of what Unit 5 looks like, and then they're going to say it's amended basically to show Unit 5. And then each time they bring a set of buildings in, that's going to be an amended plat.
Alderman Shadle?
Those things would happen in your office, though. They wouldn't happen on the council floor?
No. An amended plat would be coming through to count. There would be a similar process that we just saw today. My office, my department does not have the authority to just take an amended plat and sign it. I can't do that.
Alderman Busker?
Madam Mayor. Director, so if we approve this tonight, before any construction would be able to be, it would have to come back also for the water issues. It would have to come back to the council at that point to show that they have the proper drainage and water issues designed for approval before the council as well.
That I'm gonna ask. Actually, I'll ask Rob Boyer what the permitting process is. Some of this is going to involve. Some of this permitting is going to involve public utility. So even though you're going to have a developer building and funding this private utility, or as you discussed there, we know it's been discussed possibly some public funding, although there is nothing currently stated. There is no TIF, right? We know that there is no grant funding for the actual public utility. But I'll ask, Public Works to kind of chime in on how that would look for a permit for running actually running a public utility that would be constructed by a private organization. So I don't know if you want to.
Director Boyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Where we left this was originally the council approved moving forward with the wastewater portion of this through the Unsewered Communities Grant with the Illinois EPA. I don't believe any utility funding was approved to either design or construct the wastewater utility portion of this project. So if that helps you out, the water, I don't believe will be much of an issue.
Madam Mayor. Try to clarify a few things real quick here. The plat is something that the council will approve. The stormwater drainage, the utilities, whether it be water, sewer, the streets, will all be done by staff. Council will only be reviewing the plats. Everything else is done in-house. And the stormwater will be done as they finalize their plat plans, and as they start building their roads, that'll be reviewed by city staff, and as they come in with their water and sewer plans, that again will be reviewed by city staff, and we do have a consulting engineer that we do use as well to review those plans. So this council will not be reviewing any of the water and sewer and storm plans, just the plats. And by the way, and the road, because the road's also a private road, it's not going to be a public street. We will not be maintaining that street.
Alderman Borneman?
Oh, I think that's great. Follow.
Follow up. That being said, would those design improvements then be considered a amendment to the plat?
No, as I was saying, an amendment to the plat is going to be in regards to every time a unit's built, they're going to have to do that. Now, if they go through permitting and they decide they need to make a bigger drainage easement, there's easements stated on the plat. If it comes up through their engineering analysis, we need to make a bigger drainage area, and it's going to be different from that plat. They would and they amend the plat for that reason to show a bigger drainage easement or to change any easements. Then that would be a amended plat.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Borneman?
So I wanted to follow up on a comment that was made by Mr. Monroe. You said that the majority of council had previously voted no to this. I'm confused by what you're referring to.
Not the last vote, but the previous vote before that. It was a majority voted no to move this forward, only because I brought it back because I felt like it's, I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the city. I also want to make sure we're doing the right thing for the city, and I wanted to give them a chance to have a deeper conversation, to share with us more information, to answer some of the concerns of the homeowners in that area. And so we had a secondary vote that I brought forward because I was one of the ones that had voted no to make a change. And in the time since then, I've had zero contact, and I don't believe any of the homeowners in that area have had any contact either. And we're sitting with the same concerns that we had before. And in my opinion, I kind of gave them a second chance, a do-over, to kind of have these conversations, to come up with ideas that would alleviate the concerns that I think a few of us have tonight. So
Isn't what you're talking about just specifically with regards to the TIF study?
not just the TIF study.
But the vote you're talking about that came back, that you brought back, wasn't that just the TIF study for this project?
I believe so.
I'd have to look back. It's been a year and a half almost.
Well, no, from the TIF study, that was just a few months ago. I wasn't at that, because I was not at the second meeting that when it was brought back, and that was just a few months ago. So I guess my point is,
my recollection, and I guess we'll have to have the clerk go through the records, not tonight, but obviously to look back, but my recollection was that there was a motion to reconsider the TIF, the TIF funding.
There was also the zoning change, and I don't know which one was reconsidered.
Yeah.
I don't recall.
One of them was originally not approved, and therefore that's what necessitated the motion to reconsider, which then brought it back onto the table there. But we'd have to confirm the zoning issue, as the clerk mentioned.
okay, so the zoning issue was a while back, and that was approved by the council. And then there was a TIF request, and that got shot down, and then brought back the next meeting and approved. There hasn't been any discussion on this plat for the board or the council, right?
If you're asking me, yes.
Yeah.
My understanding is, in my time here, year and a half, this is the first that was presented to me, this plat, and it was, I believe I said March 22nd. That's when it was presented to me. I am not aware of an actual plat. To get a plat approved, it has to be presented to my office, and then my office presents it to the Planning Commission as a hearing, and then I take those findings and present it to council. And this is the first that I've been presented the plat to go to Planning Commission, and now it's being presented to you. That's in my time here, that's my recollection of it. Now, Randy may have remembered another version that was presented, but I'm not aware of it.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I think what's kind of misunderstood is that when we had the zoning issue, when we were changing it from, I believe, R1 to R5, they did present a concept plan of what was going to be there. And at one time, we had, I think, 38 units on it, and then it got reduced, and now it's down to 32. But there has never been a plat, it's per se, that's been presented for council until tonight.
And there were some public comments about the zoning board and the planning commission denying this, and the term subdivision was used. That was back when it was being presented as a subdivision, which is subject to a completely different set of standards than a condo development. Is that right?
You are correct, yes.
And our condo development code, I think, would you agree, is woefully underdeveloped?
I don't want to say that.
Okay, well, you don't have to say that. But, I mean, I guess what I'll just describe it here is contents of declaration, contents of plats. And what's required to be shown in the plats, like I said, are three things, which all have essentially been met. And so that's my issue here, is that we're talking about how we should hold these people accountable and make them according to the laws. The law at issue only requires these three things. And it doesn't provide us any insight that we would, most people would want when you're approving something like this. But the system in place in the city of Freeport is that the next step, those things that we want, are subject to building permits and, the permitting process, which includes building, drainage, things like that. So if we want to hold people accountable to the law, we can't just start making up the law after the permit's been filed, after the public hearing, and at this time when we're making decisions on whether or not they've met the law. So one thing we can do, though, is subject any approvals to conditions, which I think are more than reasonable due to the limited information we have. So with that being said, I'm recommending the following conditions, which I'm going to pass. I'll read them, but I have them written out if you guys can pass those down. So for one, the landscaping management plan and vegetation screening plan, which under our code, it's really not clear if even one would be required unless we made a condition to require it. So my request would be to add a condition if this is approved to which states, and I'm going to read it for the record here. Prior to the issuance of any building permits for the development, the applicant shall submit a landscaping and vegetation screening management plan to the Department of Community and Economic Development, which shall be subject to the approval of the Director of Community and Economic Development. The plan shall be designed to foster an aesthetically pleasing, environmentally beneficial, and sustainable development that will protect and preserve the appearance, character, general health, safety, and wellness of the community, in addition to any requirements of Section 1272 of the city's code, which is the city's screening and landscaping plan, but it's unclear if it would even apply to this development. Among other things in those requirements, the plan shall be designed to reduce stormwater runoff, erosion, and flooding. The plan shall also provide for vegetative screening of the development, which at a minimum shall provide for a continuous line of native evergreen foliage and or native shrubs and or native trees and or existing wooded area around the exterior of the plat, designed to screen the development from the sight lines from adjacent properties and or public rights of way. And then an impacted adjacent property owner or public entity with jurisdiction over the public right-of-way may waive the sightline screening requirements of the plan with respect to any area of the development that directly borders the adjacent property or right-of-way. So, with all that being said, that's one condition. The second condition would be the commencement of construction, being that the plat is approved, subject to the condition that the applicant obtain all necessary permits for the project and commence construction of the project within 18 months of the council's approval of the plat. The city manager may extend this requirement by 12 months upon good cause shown by the applicant, which includes delays outside the control of the applicant, including supply chain and construction delays, or demonstration of commercially reasonable diligence on the part of the applicant. And for the purposes of commencement of construction, that means any properly permitted and authorized site development, which includes specific actual construction things that are listed there: grubbing, grading, excavation, roadwork, construction of the project on related structures, and infrastructure improvements. So, city manager, these are two conditions similar to what you requested of the zoning approval that was referenced in public comment previously, right?
That is correct.
Do you recall what the third condition was to that?
I think we were talking about means of ingress and egress. I really don't recall, but I know originally we had some initial concerns, but a lot of them had to do with the landscaping. I believe with landscaping and the stormwater detention, which is basically all of your number one, was the third one, because those were the two major issues at that time. And then we were talking about the radii of the streets and the width of the streets.
I got some more questions. So, Director Duckman, I noticed that the declarations don't mention anything about snow removal, where the snow is going to be, garbage pickup. Are they going to be on like the public garbage? When is that something? When is that going to get decided? Would there be a requirement that they use the gills?
They would be within the city of Freeport, and they would be treated as, and I don't have the ordinance right in front of me, but I believe it's anytime there's more than 6 units, they have to have a plan for how they're going to do their garbage, community type garbage. And that's just going right off, not having the ordinance in front of me, but that's standard for us. Is after it's 6 units is usually the cutoff to where you can't just have toters out. They could certainly present a plan to us and say, we think we'd be better off with toters as opposed to a dumpster, and I would have that right. And I'm fairly certain it's in the ordinance that I can be petitioned to say we would like to do toters as opposed to community dumpsters. But I have the ability to review that plan in my office. I do know that.
Mr. Wiegans, there's been a lot of comments concerning the development end. Is there anything you'd like to be able to have comment on?
Well, I guess I'll make a point of order. Again, we had our evidence on this. So, council, do you think it's appropriate for us to be taking testimony from an applicant at this time if we've already had our evidence presented?
I guess it depends on what he's going to say. There, if he's going to speak to, in support of his, reiterate all the things that would have been said at the planning commission, then no, he shouldn't. So that's that's why I'm saying no. If this isn't mayor, if the intent is to allow him to reiterate what he would have. Okay, so what was the?
Well, there's been a lot of things that have been said. I didn't know if there was something that was specific that.
I suppose if there were questions from council, that would be appropriate at this time, but otherwise this would not be a time for just to reiterate the planning commission presentation.
Yeah, and to continue, I would like to hear questions, but at the same time, this is a unique, this isn't like passing an ordinance or something. We are passing an ordinance, but it's a hearing process. And at this point, we're kind of sitting as, essentially, in a sense, kind of in a judicial kind of capacity of whether or not we determined that X, Y, and Z have been met. So that's why if we hear from Mr. Wiegans, then I think you'd have to hear from the objectors, and then, you know, what's the point of the hearing that was already held when all that was there and everyone was ready for that. So I think out of fundamental fairness issues, we probably should not take new evidence.
Then it comes back to your previous comments of the 3 specific points that have been met. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, and I'll be quick, and I just want to comment, and this has kind of brought to light the extreme inadequacies of our current code. But when an application is filed, that's the code that the application gets to use. So even if we were to change the code, that applicant remains, you know, subject to the previous revisions or version of the ordinance. So I think that there's certainly an area where, because our code could say, we want all these designs as part of our plat development, but it doesn't. So again, I'm just trying to kind of explain the procedure here and where we're at, and I know it seems unfair. I didn't write this code. It's in need of great development, and maybe, you know, that's one of the reasons that previous developments were allowed to kind of get through to the point where, you know, you're now complaining about what your backyard looks like. But it is what it is. This is the ordinance.
Just as a point of clarification for the council, Alderman Borneman, I think you had referenced a 60-day window for approval of the plat. From the time the application is submitted, the plat application is submitted, the planning commission has 60 days to hear it and then render a recommendation. From the time the commission makes a recommendation, the council has 30 days then to vote on it. So within 30 days.
Okay, sorry, I missed that then. So
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Monroe?
Thank you, ma'am. Alderman Borneman, did anybody from Park Partners help you write these conditions, item 1 or 2?
no.
Because, you know, here's the thing. I'm looking back, preliminary plot, and the date on this, I know my memory's bad, and I'm getting older, but this says 5/20 of 2021. And here is the plot that we're being given as the final plot tonight. It's the same exact plot as what we got in 2021. The concerns of the council haven't changed. And I appreciate kind of how you've placed this and put this out there. But since, that's 2 years, almost 2 years. And we're sitting here and we've got no further clarification. And I feel like we're ramrodding this through ahead of the next council that takes over. And the ones ramrodding it through have no reason to be concerned about where this goes because they're not going to be part of this council. And
I have no concern. I have no reason to be concerned about anything anymore. I should just leave.
I don't know.
Okay.
I feel like you voted no the last time, and now you're so adamant for this. I'm trying to understand that. And we're sitting here in council.
You don't even know what we voted on last time. You keep saying this. You're the one who doesn't even know what we were voting on.
No, I absolutely do. That's why I went back and started looking.
Okay, well, tell us what we were voting on.
Well, I just showed you. The exact same plot from May of 2021 is the same exact plot I'm looking at here with just the words definition easement and the sidewalk's been removed. The walkway's been removed. The concerns of everybody in that neighborhood, everybody on this council that we had before, they're the same group of guys. For the most part, there's a couple of new faces, but other than that, it's the same people. And I don't think we should try to rush something through that we have a lot of concerns about. And I think we need to take our time. And the problem is, the exact same thing that we fought for, sidewalks, curb and gutter, all of those types of things to manage the water. I live in a neighborhood that has no sidewalks, has no curb and gutter. And we have all kinds of flooding problems as water runs off the hills. And I'm not convinced that this is going to be dealt with. And I know you've put the conditions here. But at the same time, I have those concerns because I'm dealing with those myself. And that's why we get the final say if this moves forward or not. Because we have to look forward in our community and do the right thing for the community. It's not just me. It's not just you. It's everybody in this room and everybody in this city. We've got to move forward and think about it. I mean, we got to this point because a previous mayor didn't do anything. And now we're sitting here, we're caught holding the bill. $20 on my water bill is going up because they did nothing since 1968. I was born in '69. So that's why we are here. Not because, we're trying to say, Mr. Wiggins, we want to stop your project. We just want to make sure the project fits within the elements of the city of Freeport and that we improve the city of Freeport and we don't redo this and cause the same problems over and over again. That's all I'm saying. I don't think it's wrong to sit and think about and have a conversation without rushing to a decision. And I feel like we're getting rushed into a decision, and this is a very important decision for all of us because it does affect that community. It's also the entrance into one of the jewels of this city, Cray Park. I mean, we've got to make sure that we're doing the right thing, because, we've got several projects that were never completed, and you're right. You're 100% right. We as a city council have got to fix those ordinances. We've got to make them better so that we get a complete project and that people are held to account when they don't fix them and complete them. That's all I'm saying. It's not an attack on you. It's not an attack on Mr. Wiggins. It's just I care about this city. That's why I'm sitting in this seat. That's why I came here to begin with, to make sure that we don't do the same things that we did back in 1980, that we did back in 1968, that we move forward, we unite this community, and we work together. That's the only way we're going to get better. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry if that offends people.
Alderman Barr.
So, excuse me, thank you, Mr. Monroe. I understand your concerns. I would have to say that I do take a little offense to the fact, similar to Mr. Borman, that I won't care because I'm gone. I've lived here my whole life. I care. It's my neighborhood. This is going in or is proposed in my neighborhood. I too have no curb and gutter. Everyone has concerns, everywhere. I guess my question is to Director Duckman. So you'd mentioned in your comments that this is common, or this process is similar, or it's not unusual for this to be approved like this with additional approvals and information brought forward later on. Is that correct?
Correct. Approving a plat does not approve engineering design. It is kind of essentially to make it shorter and more understandable. That's what I was saying.
So you would be, again, just very simply water runoff, all that sort of stuff would have to be looked at as you move forward, correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. So well, I understand your concerns, Mr. Monroe, and I know there's a lot of concerns with this project. I mean, I've heard them. Like I said, I live in the neighborhood. I'm concerned as a community that if we do not move forward with projects in this town, whether this project moves forward or not, we're saying to other folks outside the community, Freeport is not open for business. Freeport is not a community that you can come in and open a business and without going through an extreme amount of difficult opposition. It's not a community that you can build in, because there isn't a lot of building going on in this community as we sit here, really, that I drive around every day. I'm an old man. I get a cup of coffee on a Sunday and I drive around. there's not a lot of building going on, and it's concerning to me. And we complain often about the blighted areas in this town, but we have an opportunity possibly to bring in some revenue. And I think if we send a message that we are not open to that, then I think others will hear that. We don't know who they are. We don't know what the projects will be. I do think it'll be a concern moving forward. So although I am off the council, I am concerned, and I am concerned about everyone in this community, and I think this is an opportunity to help nudge it forward a little bit. And that's just my opinion.
I have to agree with you, Alderman Barr. It sends a bigger message than what we realize. Alderman Monroe.
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not saying we stop this. I'm saying that we have a better plan in place so that we understand what's going on and we're not voting on something that we don't have an understanding on. And that's my point. And, I didn't mean to, point at you guys and go, oh, you're off the council in 6 weeks. That wasn't my point. My point is that we have to make sure that this is right. Because I know of 2 other projects that have gotten shut down before we even got to this stage. And I've got questions about all of that. So I think if we're going to, do the right thing, we have to at least have an understanding of what we're voting on and what that means moving forward. And I don't really have a comfortable feel for that. And that's my point. I think we have to be partners. It's amazing that the name is Park Partners, because we have to be partners in this type of work. And that, a lot of communities put a lot of time in. I mean, I don't want to dictate what it completely looks like, like some communities do, where McDonald's has to have the same color scheme as every other building in town. That's not what we're doing here. We just want to make sure that environmentally and ethically we're doing the right thing for our city. And it's not to stop them, it's just to guide them in where they're going.
Alderman Borneman.
All right, Mr. Monroe, you've said a lot of great talking points, and you've said some really, positive things, but you've provided no substance to how you're going to achieve those goals. So could you elaborate a little bit on what the big deal is if you continue it? What is going to be accomplished in this period of time that you want to table this for? Because Mr. Zito said we have to make a decision on this within 30 days from, I think it's April 13th. So why don't, instead of just grandstanding and saying a bunch of nonsense or things that don't really mean anything, or I know you didn't mean to. I know you didn't mean to point at us and say that we're not going to care.
No comments from the audience.
Hey, it's okay. It's okay.
All right. I'm sorry. I'll stop being condescending if that's how that's being taken, but at the same time, you literally just pointed to me and in the direction of another alderman and said, well, you guys have no reason to care about this. So I know you didn't mean to do that, but that's exactly what you did. So how about now, in addition to doing that, you provide some solution about how we're going to do what exactly you've been talking about for the last 10 minutes?
So it's been 2 years, and I know you're like, oh, we got to rush now. For 2 years, nothing has happened. And I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is a big deal. Because when we went through this previously, we wanted more information. We asked for more information. And I'm gonna go back and pull the video, and I will give you exact words and things that we talked about. We talked about 32 units are too many. We talked about the water issues. We talked about, a matter of fact, I remember back now that we weren't going to be putting any money into this project. And now I'm finding out that we got to tie in, and we're going to have to do this, and we're going to have to do that. And that's my concern. You know what? You want to build a project, don't ask us for money if you don't want our input. That's the problem. We all work. We're all doing things. We're trying to do the right things moving forward. And I will apologize for what I said, because I didn't mean to say it that way. I'm up here off the cuff having a conversation. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not, I'm speaking from the heart. So, you know, I will tell you, the fact that 2 years ago, this is the same exact plot, I've got no information. They've not even been willing to have a conversation with the aldermen in this community. And here we sit, and now it's like, well, we got 30 days to make a decision.
Alderman Borneman.
So I couldn't agree with you more about public funding. One of the owners came up and said, you guys have no worry about this project being funded. And everyone in this room knows that. I mean, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that's what he said. But you were the person who called back the TIF vote. It got shot down. You reconsidered the TIF vote to allow a TIF study to be conducted. And you know that would result in public funding for this project. I voted against that. So I don't understand like this grandstanding you're doing about how I'm trying to further rush this project through so it can get public funding. I've never once been for that, and I've been openly against that.
Well, I guess my point is this. I didn't want to limit the project. I wanted to move it forward. I wanted to have more conversation, and I wanted to get to a point where we could agree that this project makes the most sense for that community, part of the community, our city in general, and I don't want to shut down projects. That's not the point here. The point is that this is a two-way street. Okay, you get a piece of land. You can build on it whatever you want, right? But at the end of the day, we all have to live with it. And we have to live with how it affects our infrastructure and how our city works with it. And I know where this is going to go. I have a gut feeling about it in general. And I think Alderman Shadle was kind of hitting the nail on the head, that a lot of this development is rushed through with this grandiose idea of what we're going to do there on that small piece of land. Really, it is. For 32 units, it's a small piece of land. I think I calculated it's like 0.1 acres, 0.18 acres per unit. You know, these are things that we've got to think about. What happens if it does fail? Do we have to then start plowing the roads? Are we responsible for it? You know, all of those things do matter. And to have a conversation about it and to be able to talk about it, plan it out, where we're at, I don't think is a bad thing. You know, and that's all I'm asking. And you're right. I did bring it back. And the reason I brought it back was because I realized I made a mistake on that one piece of the puzzle. At least give them the tools and everything to kind of have a conversation about it, but they've never come back. Ever. 2 years.
That was not 2 years ago, though. That was just a few months ago.
You're looking at one piece. Look at the whole thing. I mean.
Well, you're saying things that aren't true, so that's my problem.
What am I not saying that's true?
The TIF thing was just a few months ago. You keep saying it was 2 years ago.
No, but the plot and everything else that we had concerns about was 2 years ago.
I agree, and they still exist, but our code doesn't require them to prove these things to us. That's what I'm getting at. You say follow the law. That's the law.
I didn't say follow the law.
You said it multiple times. You said hold them accountable according to the law. That's the law. That's the ordinance that applies.
Alderman Barr, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, Attorney Zito.
Director Duckman, I just want to know for myself, from a density standpoint, does the proposed lots meet our ordinance as far as density requirements?
Yes, I reviewed this with our building inspector, and we confirmed that it does.
So I've listened to everybody talk tonight, and I just want to throw in some additional points then just from a legal perspective for to see if it just kind of, for everyone to kind of factor in. I think what I'm hearing Alderman Borneman say is the fact that, or reiterate, is that what's before you is the plat, okay? And that there are certain requirements that have to be met in order for the plat to be approved. My understanding is based off of what I'm hearing tonight and from staff's report, purely from just looking at the plat standpoint, everything has been met, okay? So to that end, there are issues if you don't approve something that's met everything that is required by code. So I just throw that out for you. Not saying that communities don't do it all the time. I'm just telling you that there's an issue potentially there. I think what I'm also hearing is that there's obviously concerns with things like drainage and other issues. I think what I'm hearing from Director Duckman is that those issues still exist and that they are addressed at a later stage in the process there. That just like with zoning, getting the property rezoned, that was step one, right? This is step two, getting a plat. Step three is pulling building permits. As a part of pulling building permits, you have to prove up your engineering, your drainage studies, or whatever. At that point, if it doesn't meet the rules, then the project doesn't go forward at that point. I think what I'm hearing Alderman Borneman say is that, hey, he's not discounting that. He's just saying that's at a different stage in the process, and that we potentially open ourselves up to issues, legal issues, if we kill a project that has met all the requirements of step one, has legally met the requirements of step two, just looking at the plat, which is why I asked about the density, because the plat where you're looking is, what is the configuration? How many lots are there? Do we meet all the regulations regarding how many lots are allowed to have and how they have to be laid out and setbacks and stuff like that? And then step three, which we haven't gotten to yet, is a lot of those big concerns that you guys, that I'm hearing the Alderman mention as well as the public mention, but that's the next step. And at that point, if it doesn't meet the rules, then that can stop the process moving forward. But likewise, if they are able to present plans and studies and drainage that show that the development meets all the rules, or that they're gonna build it in such a way that meets all the rules, then that has to be taken into consideration as well. The fact that, hey, but again, I think that's what I'm hearing Alderman Borneman say, is that we're not to that stage yet, and we should only be considering the plat itself right now.
Director Duckman?
I didn't know if you were asking me the question or if you were making a statement. I didn't know.
I'm just pointing out making statements for the council to consider, and a little bit of recap, I think, for everyone to try to distill down what's actually before them right now there, and just potential implications that come along with voting in favor, or not voting in favor of just the plat itself right now. It comes with issues. Again, other communities do it all the time. Even though something meets all the conditions, they'll vote it down and nothing happens. And that item is done. Does it create potential legal issues if someone were to challenge it? Yes, potentially yes. So I'm just making the council aware of that there. But likewise, to say that I want to make it clear that staff is not discounting the drainage issues or whatever. They're saying that all has to be evaluated at step three.
I just want to say it's perceived issues. We don't know that. Right. I just wanted to say perceived. It's a perceived drainage.
Yeah, no, that's right. But just the drainage issues along with those other building and development related issues get addressed at stage three.
Correct.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
we've been talking for a while. Madam Clerk, could you clarify, do we have a motion
No.
on this with this, or where are we at with just
We don't have any
question
motions
here?
made.
No motion?
Alderman
Thing on the
Borneman
floor.
suggested 2 conditions, but it's not been as a motion.
Where we're at right now is basically just
Discuss it.
just the agenda item as presented right now.
Alderman Ross?
Basically, the plat itself. When they bring up a plat, why don't we bring up everything at one time, as we speaking of the...
That's not the way the ordinance is written. That's not the way the permitting process is.
You asking me or?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Right. Alderman Bordeman did a nice job explaining. He said there's the 3 requirements in section 1484. So essentially, development generally, I'm going to speak on a general term. If you talk to a developer, whether it's Chicago, Illinois, New York, Freeport, Rockford, anywhere, they're going to look and say, what are the requirements for this plat? What do I have to do to, move this plat forward? They're going to do those requirements.
Okay.
I've yet to meet a developer that's going to say, let me design this, get this permitted. We would say, I can't permit your sewer plan because you don't have a plat for that. So you have to do the plat first before you can go through the permitting with the sewer. So if they came to me right now and say, I want to do a sewer for 32 units, I would say, you don't have a plat that allows you to design sewer for 32 units, so let me save you the time with a no.
So each individual requirement deserves a plat. I mean, has a plat.
You're saying, then I think Attorney Zito did a nice job of explaining this as well. There's a process to development. There's a process to development. So this step that we're talking about here is the plat, wanting to do 32 units on this property. What will follow will be design, engineering design, permitting, construction of the utilities. That would follow the approval of this plat.
Okay. Okay.
Alderman Shadle?
Just digging through my packet from a couple of years ago. The preliminary plat dated 5/20 of 21, field work completed 3/17 of 21. There's all your storm drainage work we don't have now in the preliminary plat.
You're asking me this question.
Just making a statement.
Okay, we do know, I mean, they have, like you said, they do have a preliminary design plan for their storm sewer, but they're not going to go through the process of permitting it, going to the state agencies to permit it. So I don't disagree that working for several civil engineering companies, in my experience, they're going to do both simultaneously and then focus more on the storm sewer, water, and drainage once they're approved with the actual plat. So it's commonplace for them to say, okay, we're working on the plat approval. How does the sewer, water, and drainage work? I don't disagree that they would have some preliminary plans submitted, which I've seen. So I'm not arguing that whatsoever.
Alderman Shadle?
I guess I'm going back to the fact that I wish I had a little more time.
Understood.
Alderman Borneman?
Mr. Shado, are those for this current 32 unit one or for that bigger one?
It's the 32 units, preliminary plat.
Subdivision of condo.
Alderman Borneman,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is under the condo rules, right? So I'm sorry, it is 60 days. So I just wanted to clarify that. I was looking under the normal subdivision plat rules originally, but this is specifically condo, so you were right on the 60-day window to vote.
Mayor, I just had a question.
Go ahead.
So I know you don't have this in front of you, Mr. Duckman, but was this submitted, do you know, if with regards to the project when it was a subdivision?
My guess, and this would be my understanding of it, would be that it would have been described as like you're saying, a preliminary plat or a concept plat or an idea for discussion, because what we're talking about here is zoning. So oftentimes, while not a requirement, oftentimes in a zoning hearing, a petitioner is going to say, I'm going to present, well, why, it's a common question. Why are you rezoning from R2 to R5? Why? I don't know why you want to rezone. And in my opinion, this was presented as preliminary plat, concept plat. It's a way to go through zoning to say, I'm not holding any cards here. I want to do a subdivision. I'm not coming to say I want R5 zoning to do one multi-unit building. I'm being transparent and saying this is the concept plan. And see, this goes back to steps 1, 2, 3, as we're talking about. They're not going to go through with a final plat if they don't have the zoning. They have to invest their time into the steps in development. State of Illinois, filter down to municipalities, there's a process to development. The first step is going to be zoning. So they have a preliminary plat, which is going to illustrate why they're doing the zoning. Then they get the zoning. Then they're going to finalize their plat because they now have the zoning, which is where we're at today. And if that's approved, they're going to go full speed ahead into utilities. And then if that's approved, then they're going to go full speed ahead into site work, and then they're going to go full speed ahead into permitting the actual individual units. They have to, and they don't have to, it's common practice for a civil engineer / developer. There's steps to where you're investing your money to finalize those steps. And in this step, we're looking at the plat.
Alderman Borneman?
Okay, so what I asked earlier, first question was written protest not filed. So the number of votes to approve this is what now? Just a majority? Okay. And if a written protest was filed, it would require 6 votes?
Director Duckman, do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't, but I can answer any questions, certainly. I think everything's been stated.
So basically, the Planning Commission has vetted all those issues having to do with the plat.
Yes, that's a good point. I would add that it's common practice. Our municipality is in line with the fact that when you present a plat to a municipality, and I'll be specific with Freeport, my department takes that plat and presents it to Planning Commission, and they're tasked with having a set of findings that they then present to City Council. So I guess to your point, the point of the Planning Commission is to review that and present their findings to all of you. And it's a public hearing. Comments were made by the public. So yes, the answer to your question is the Planning Commission did a thorough job of reviewing this and giving their findings.
And their finding was 6-0 and 1 abstention.
That is correct, 6-0 with 1 abstention. In favor of the plat as presented.
And further things such as all the things that are have been brought up tonight are part of the permitting process. There's a step for everything.
Yes, that is correct. You are correct.
So the resolution before you is approving that plat.
I'll make the
Alderman
motion
Parker.
to approve it.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker to adopt Resolution 2023-30. Is there a second?
Do we want to make a motion with the conditions as laid out by Alderman Borneman? Is that something that's?
I think we need to.
Alderman Parker would.
Alderman Parker, would you agree with those 2 conditions that were brought forward?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so then your motion would be the Resolution 2023-30 adoption with the 2 conditions that were handed to each one of the council members?
A second.
We have a motion made by Parker, seconded by Barr. Any further discussion?
So,
Go
I
ahead.
guess right now would be time to add conditions, because that's how we hold them accountable, is we add conditions right now. So if anybody has thoughts on those, I would recommend adding more conditions. But again, as Mayor said, all these things are going to go through a permitting process, and the permitting is not just subject to local, but also state and federal regulations with respect to stormwater and sewer and things like that. I guess I would add a condition that they include sidewalks in their plat. Attorney Zito, is that something that would be an appropriate condition? Or I think Mr. Cox might still be here who could comment as well.
I'm unaware of anything in the code that says that you couldn't require sidewalks. I'm not sure.
Manager Bucus?
For clarification, for my part, when you say sidewalks, you're talking about inside the development, which is a private development, it's a private street, or you're talking about sidewalks along Dedimer and Park Boulevard, which is the public right of way, or both.
Sure. I was specifically referring to the inside of the community, if that's something feasible.
And what does that do to the plot then, Director Duckman?
Yeah, I think that's going to be that's a tougher condition to put on there, considering they don't have, I mean, you would have to show layout of the sidewalks, maybe specify width, where you're going to put them.
All right, well, I'll strike that condition.
Attorney Cox, I saw you poke your head around the side there. Did you want to add something? Alderman Shadle?
Just want to throw it out there that all the conditions are subject to the fact that my initial concern was whether it's financially viable or mute if it goes bankrupt.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, we have that motion made by
One more
Alderman
question,
Parker.
Mayor. One more question.
Sure.
Okay, prior to what Alderman Shadle just said, you got the conditions. The project goes through and then they do file the bankruptcy. What happens?
Well, I don't believe that we get in the weeds with any developer's finances. I mean, I guess we could have made, you know, the Meadows jump through a million hoops, but we didn't. I mean, that's not our job.
No, my question is, what happens if it did happen?
Are you saying if they didn't develop this entire project? I mean, are you saying if they built maybe one condo unit and then the rest of it didn't get developed? Is that the question?
Or just at any time they file bankruptcy, what would happen with the project?
We do have there are bonding requirements for the utilities and the private road. So essentially, if if they start off the project and develop it, the road would be built and you'd have bonding requirements to go back on for that. You know what I mean? So in your scenario, I'm not saying this is what would happen, but in your scenario, somebody buys one condo unit, starts building their condo, and the developer is required to put in utilities, is required to put in a road. If they don't do that, you call their bond, and essentially it's an insurance that the bonding agent would pay another contractor to do the work, meaning the utilities and the site work.
Yeah, but no, we're speaking of bankruptcy though. If they file bankruptcy, they said, we got no more money.
Okay, I'm following you, Art.
Yeah,
I'm
we
just
have no more money.
right.
So we're just gonna leave.
Okay.
And then you got the project still sitting there with nothing developed. And now you got the runoff, erosion, and flooding. And everybody at the bottom of that hill is
I think as
hit with it.
I think well, Art, I think that's what I was commenting on was the bonding for those utilities would require those utilities to be built out. So even if this developer goes bankrupt, they have a bond as part of their permit. So if they say, I'm going to start construction here,
Right.
and that's why I think anybody comes to my office, I'm very strong on bonds. Bonds are vital to when you do high-end development. You have to have bonds because when you say, I'm going to do this project, we would have a bond that's based on an engineer's estimate. It's going to cost $10 million hypothetically to do the drainage correctly, sewer correctly, water correctly, private road. This is how much the engineer says it will cost. Your bond will be required to do that as part of the project. So if you do go bankrupt, that will be built by someone else
Yeah.
for those specifications.
They'll have to, in other words, they would have to take care of the business they need to be taken care of.
Correct, or the insurance company is essentially I say vouching, but this insurance company is covering those utilities to be installed, is requiring that private road to be built, et cetera. You know, all of those requirements, your concerns would be covered in the bonding process. Bonding is required per the permit. You can't do that. Essentially, you can't just disappear on that.
Okay.
Attorney Zito?
Just to piggyback off of what Director Dunkman said, so a bond would cover the improvements, so those typical infrastructure type improvements, water, sewer, road, utilities, stuff like that. Now, if the developer, but it's not going to cover the building of units, obviously. So the developer goes bankrupt, the bond would be tapped to finish off the infrastructure improvement, water, sewer, utilities, stuff like that. But then most likely the lots sit vacant. I would imagine typically, again, depending on the scenario, but typically when a developer goes under, a lot of times if there's a bank involved, the bank takes over the forecloses on the lots, the bank becomes the owner, the bank then sells the lots to a new developer or to whoever else wants to try to start building, and you have a new developer. If there's no mortgage here and the company goes belly up, then ultimately I think through the bankruptcy process, someone's going to end up with ownership of those lots, other creditors or whatever it is. But the bond does not get your units built or sold.
Right.
So through your infrastructure completed.
Yeah. And then if the bank gets them, and the bank can't do nothing with them, they just sit there.
Potentially until they're ready to do something with it.
Okay.
Yep, we have a motion and a
I
second.
I would
Oh, I'm
like
sorry,
to add
Alderman
a couple of conditions if possible. One would be that we have a successor clause within the agreement with this developer, so that if something were to go wrong, that we would have somebody to hold accountable to get these things resolved. Many communities use community benefits agreements. I think we should also have that as well, for the street lights, for the roadways, how they tie in the water and sewer, and we address those things before we move forward with this agreement. And I think we outline all of the things that we all feel are important for this private community to fit within our overall city. And, you know, this is not something that's new. These are things that many developers and citizens have come into. And it doesn't take a lot of research to dive in to see that a lot of these projects are left unfinished. We have examples here in our own community, and that we hold the developer to a standard that they achieve the goals that we're agreeing to here. And we need a way to kind of do that.
Alderman Borneman?
Do you have like specifics about when you say community benefits agreement? Because I think we kind of need to get some terms together if we're going to adopt a condition.
Agreed. Asking me to do it on the fly is a little difficult,
Well,
but it might change my vote.
so
Well, the attorneys are talking about what's actually legal to do here, so we might want to wait.
it's always good.
Alderman Rowe, I'm sorry, with regards to the first additional condition that you were talking about, if I understand you right, you were talking about a condition that would basically require some sort of a development agreement that would include terms and conditions that could be held against the developer or the successors to that developer. Is that kind of a nutshell?
Correct.
Okay. Certainly development agreements are something that are common with any development there, that a community can enter into a development agreement. I question whether or not we can make that a condition of a plat, because a plat typically has nothing to do with the development agreement. There, the plat itself usually doesn't cover that topic there, so I have some reservations there. Now, certainly if the developer is willing to enter into a development agreement, that's fine. I just don't know if we can. I think we're in an uncharted territory by making it a condition of the approval of the plat. Again, I think where we're running into a little bit of issues is the fact that what's before us right now is strictly the plat.
Attorney Zito.
I'm not saying that a development agreement's not that I think that's a good idea there. I just don't know if we can make it a condition of the plat. That's all.
So the question, and I'll put this back, at what point, I mean, these happen all over the country. At what point does this typically enter into this type of, and it looks like Director Duckman's got.
No, sorry.
Oh.
You were looking at me, that's why.
Oh, I just looking
Sorry,
back
no,
and
that's
forth.
okay. I didn't.
No, at what point do we typically bring these in?
I think Alderman Bordeman did a nice job explaining that, certain, what you're talking about here is that even if we said we're going to make a text amendment and we're going to make this a requirement now, we're going to change our ordinance, as he said, the date that this subdivision was submitted, they're going to be held to those requirements that exist today. So I think when you're asking, well, when do we make the changes? Certainly you can make the changes, and then the next subdivision would be beholden to those requirements. But I think I go back to what Alderman Bordeman said, because I think that was a good answer to your question, in that it was submitted March 22nd. The ordinance that existed as of that date is what they're beholden to.
To piggyback off of that, Alderman Monroe, my experience is that I've had communities where the development agreement happens right off the bat, right at the very beginning. The first time they sit down with the community, they're made aware of the fact that, hey, you're going to need to enter into a development agreement that would include terms and provisions that cover all the steps, the zoning, the platting, the drainage studies, building permitting, all that sort of stuff there. A lot of those communities have it written into their code that a development agreement is required. I'm unaware of, Wayne, I'll defer to you on that part. We
don't have, sorry to interrupt. The answer to your question is no, we don't have a requirement in our ordinance for a developer agreement at the onset, like you're speaking to.
It's not to say that the developer couldn't voluntarily say, hey, I'll agree to negotiate a developer agreement now, but again, it's nothing that's required of them.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk? Yep.
Sorry, just so that everyone's clear then on what the motion is, so that everyone knows what's being voted on. I believe there's a motion to approve the plat, the final plat with the two conditions that Alderman Borneman presented to the council. So that's what's before you guys right now.
Director Duckman?
Yes, I'd add the declaration and bylaws as well. That would have to be in the motion as well, because there's declarations that were associated as part. When you submit a condominium plat, there's the associated declarations as well.
Right. So, but those are automatically approved as a part of the final plat, right?
Correct. I just thought I just for
As a
the
clarification, I
Yes,
think that just so you guys know that by approving the plat, you're also approving the declarations that were submitted with the final plat.
Alderman Shadle?
Were those declarations in that packet Thursday night?
Yes.
Are they here?
Yes.
Yeah, so they've been,
They've all been vetted.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So I believe we're clear on what's before you. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Barr.
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
Monroe.
No.
Ross.
Nope.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Abstain.
And Shadle.
No.
We have a vote of 3 to 3. Does abstention? Does the mayor vote to break a
I
tie?
believe that in this situation, then the mayor would vote because we have a tie vote at this point. So.
Well, based on the evidence, I would vote aye.
The motion passes 4 to 3 with 1 abstention.
And like we said, item number 15 is postponed to a special meeting. So we'll move on to item number 16, which is approval of the bid. Could you please read this?
Bid opening on April 6, 2023, MFT, hot mix asphalt materials only.
Director Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Public Works Department is moving forward on the 2023 road maintenance project. We have several roads scheduled for paving with our crews, and we require materials to accomplish the goal. On Thursday, April 6, 2023, the City of Freeport held a bid opening for this year's street maintenance program, HMA Materials. The two bids received were from Helm Civil and Martin Company Excavating. Based on these bids, staff recommends awarding 23-00000-02-GM to Helm Civil for $996,000. Funding for this request is through the MFT fund. Staff requests council approve the bid.
Motion to approve.
A motion made by Alderman Busker. Is there a second?
I have a question, please.
Sure.
It seemed to me the last time we talked about this was a per ton price or something, and how did we get to a total price?
Basically, the total tonnage projected for the projects multiplied by the tonnage price. I believe the tonnage price is around 66 plus or minus per ton. Very good price.
If I could follow. And I agree with that. I'm wondering why we want to lock ourselves into a total price if it's an estimated amount for this. Do we want to go with the tonnage price, and then that's what we use, then we're set?
We had to bid discrete amount based on the projects, the scope of projects identified.
So you're comfortable with the tonnage that's proposed there then?
Yes, sir.
Manager
I'll second
Bucus?
the motion.
Manager Bucus, did you have something to add?
I'll defer, thank you.
So we have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Barr,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
No.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The motion passes 6-1.
Item number 17 is reports of department heads. Finance,
Nothing this evening, thank you.
thank you. Community Development,
Nothing tonight, Madam Mayor.
thank you. Public Works,
Nothing tonight.
and Fire.
Nothing from fire this evening.
I think everybody's tired. Police,
The police department has nothing tonight.
thank you. Library,
Thank you. I'm going to be the odd one out. Next week is National Library Week, and so that's pretty important. So we want to make sure that you stop by the library. Say thank you to everybody that's working there for all their hard work. And that's it. Thank you.
thank you. Communication,
Since we've got a nice crowd here, I just wanted to remind people that that you're able to sign up for our newsletter and email subscription on the website cityoffreeport.org, and that email subscription also will send you weather and construction alerts. For example, today we sent a construction alert about construction along Route 26. And also in terms of communication and city prestige, I just want to explain to you all that I had the pleasure of taking 7 Highland Community College students. 4 of them were from Freeport. 2 of them were actually current Ackwen students going through their College Now program, and 2 are recent graduates of Freeport High School. And the HCC team had a record win of receiving 7 individual speech awards on the national level at Washington, D.C., 5 bronze awards, 1 silver award, and 1 gold national award for persuasive speaking. And collectively, Highland Community College earned a silver award for our division of size of community college. So in terms of communication and excellence from our Freeport area students, I just wanted to share that wonderful update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
congratulations. IT, thank you. City Manager,
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to kind of follow up what the communications director mentioned about the construction on I-26, that it will begin Monday, and basically they're going to be doing patchwork on the concrete from Fairgrounds Road to South Street. I think last week they were out here doing some markings and that, and so the work will begin hopefully Monday, weather permitting. Also, for your information, we did receive our preliminary notice from the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund that our contribution rate for calendar year 2024 will be 1.08%. This year it's 0.89%, which I thought that the increase was pretty good, comparing the fact that if you, depending on which index you look at, the market lost anywhere from 12 to 18 to 24%. We are below the normal cost. The normal cost that most communities are charged is a minimum of 4.87%, so we're still well below that. And I know when I first came here about 5.5 years ago, we were in either the 9 or the 13% range. So it's come down, and because we do manage our pension funds very well, and so does IMRF. I believe the only other announcement I'll make, since we do have quite a few people here, is that to follow up with the utility, with the newsletters, that you could also sign up for ACH for your water bill. And once you sign up, we'll send you the bill. We'll tell you the date we're going to take your money out of your account, and we'll do it, and you don't have to worry about it. And that's all I have for tonight, Your Honor. Thank you.
thank you. I have nothing new to report, so we'll move on to Alderman Barr.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I need a moment at some point back to item number 12, ordinance 2023-23, when we voted for a suspension. I missed the motion and the second. Did either you or Attorney Zito note that? Number 12.
Busker made the motion. I think I made the second.
You talking about to suspend the rules?
I have Parker and Busker made the motion, and then there was a suspension of rules that failed. You got? Busker Shadle. Okay, thank you so much.
Alderman Barr?
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate the 5 new individuals who were sworn in tonight and wish them the best of luck. And, you know, we've got a lot of people here tonight talking about a condo development, which is very important to this community, but I hope we have that same kind of support and concern for our first responders because it's critical. And I just want to congratulate them, congratulate the departments. I know that recruiting and hiring right now, no matter what the business is really tough, so I think it's fantastic. So congratulations and best of luck.
Yep, thank you. Alderman Waterman?
Well, I just want to say, I hope people don't think the fact that I came prepared and presented conditions after listening to concerns that were raised by individuals in the community and tried to address them through the conditions somehow means that I had some outside or undue influence from the developer, as it was kind of alluded to. You know, these conditions were designed to kind of address the issues that have been an issue without completely just shutting down the development of a project for which we don't know how it's going to turn out. But I don't think we know enough to just say, no, we can't do this. And finally, I was at a bar the other day, and I ordered a Bud Light, and somebody looked at me and said, "Oh, you still drink that stuff?" And for those of you who don't know, there's a call for a boycott of Bud Light because it apparently gave a gift to a transgender person. And I was just shocked by the intolerance of the joke about, "Oh, you still drink that stuff." It's just, I know that times have always been contentious, and I know we always say now is worse than ever, and they've said the same thing. But I mean, I just felt the need to bring this up to say, like, the intolerance associated with those kind of jokes is just, you know, we can do better than that. Just because you don't agree with somebody or their lifestyle, it doesn't mean you have the right to treat them as if they don't exist and they're not a person. So I've been thinking about this a lot, and I just wanted to use this platform to kind of just raise that, because it's we can certainly do better than that. And I just wanted to again just make clear that my response to that person without hesitation was, I will never stop drinking Bud Light. So that's all I have.
Well, thank you for that information. Alderman Monroe?
I'm going to pass.
Thank you. Alderman Ross?
Ditto.
Alderman Parker?
Pass.
Alderman Busker?
Just a reminder of the 5th Ward Neighborhood Watch meeting tomorrow night at First Church of the Nazarene at 6 o'clock. So anyone who wants to show up, it's usually a good time.
Alderman Shadle?
In light of the news of the construction on 26 South, I just want to mention, it was brought to my attention by a citizen that the streetlights were out in front of the Meadows Mall, at Meadows Drive and the entrance. And I brought that information to the attention of Director Boyer, and within a week, those lights were back on. And I just want to say thank you, because events like this, with having things tore up, that's a big deal to have that light there, and the efficiency of your department is much appreciated.
That concludes the council announcements. We'll move on to public comments. If Candace Colby is still here? Nope. Okay. Tom Clem?
Excuse me, I was going to pass on my time this evening because I didn't get to talk up front. It's obviously that very few people know a lot about a condo project, but I can tell you this, you're going to learn. I can also say that I witnessed over the past 2 months the biggest push for a project to go through that was advertised illegally and waived off. It was brought up at the Planning Commission about Randy Bukas's letter that he wrote about the final things, and it was waived off. One of the women on the Planning Commission asked, I surely thought this would be farther along than it is. We looked at it quite a while ago and there's no changes in it. And a new member of the committee said, after he listened to your city attorney and your community development director, In other words, what you've told us is basically what Alderman Borneman said. It meets what it's supposed to have in the plot, so that means you have to vote yes on it. You know, that isn't the way government should work. You know, everybody should have a say-so, and everybody should not be felt as though they can't bring something up. Eric brought some very good points up today. Mr. Monroe brought some very good points up. There was some very good points done. But one thing that your community development director also mentioned tonight, remember, you guys won't see this back unless there's a plot amendment on it. Other than that, everybody else is going to take care of it. It'd really be nice to have a project of this size, and I hope we can do it in the future, that will very easily meet a set of standards that most everybody can agree with. Where's the water going to go? Where are the 32 people going to live if only, or how is this going to work if only half of these are sold? You know, the question of whether they're going to back it or not doesn't really bother me. It's a fact of when the condo people end up with it, what are they going to do with it? That's kind of what's going to bother me. And I will also let you know a little piece of news that came in this afternoon about 3:30 that might affect this project quite a bit. There was a conversation with the U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife about moving the eagles on the property. This is not an easy trick to do. So please, I'll let you know, there are people out there willing to take this up and willing to look at it, and it isn't going to happen tomorrow. So I thank you for your time, and I surely hope that 5 new aldermen that walk in here get a different treatment than something jammed down their throat. They don't deserve it. Thank you.
Emily Dankus? Sorry if I...
Members of the council, on behalf of the emergency dispatchers of the city of Freeport, I would like to make you aware of our concerns as they pertain to the dispatch center. There's been a high turnover rate over the course of the last year. However, staffing has steadily declined since December, and as of today, April 17th, we have fallen below the minimum staffing of 2 dispatchers for each shift. We are now at 7 dispatchers, or a capacity of 60%. Since November 1st, we have filled over 1,600 hours of overtime. The impact of working long hours of overtime with minimal days off is a major liability to the city. Excuse me. It's also been a driving force for many people leaving employment with the city for jobs that pay more and require less of them. More importantly, it's taken a huge toll on the mental and physical health of dispatchers due to the 24-hour nature of dispatching. There's a constant need to fill overtime shifts for meal breaks and 12-hour shifts. Days off are hard to come by, and working 6 to 10 days is not uncommon. The administration was made aware of our concerns months ago, and there's been little to no change in the efforts or results other than the departure of multiple seasoned dispatchers. The proposed solution of these issues has been an average pay increase of 86 cents, reducing staffing requirements to 1 dispatcher per shift, and a temporary halt on the vacation accrual cap, which was voted on earlier this evening. For comparison, an 86-cent pay raise would only raise the 911 emergency dispatcher pay grade to be equal of that of the water and sewer customer service representatives of the city of Freeport. We'd also be making less than Stevenson County 911 dispatchers. However, we take 110.8% more 911 calls than Stevenson County so far this quarter. Reducing staffing to a single-man shift, even temporarily, hinders the efficiency of the dispatch center, and it also increases the liability and poses a safety risk to responders and the public. We feel these resolutions are insignificant in comparison to the increasing liability and demands of our current situation. So collectively, we're requesting that the council consider the following. Temporary hazard pay for working a 1-man shift if and when it is forced on us, though it should be stated that the dispatch center is not in favor of adopting 1-man shifts even temporarily. Temporary double time pay for overtime shifts, a working supervisor for the dispatch center, raising telecommunicator pay grade to tier 16, which is still less than Stevenson County, and addressing the TC trainers' compensation. While this is not an all-inclusive strategy to solve the issues in the dispatch center, we do feel it is an appropriate start. The weakening morale and staffing of the 911 dispatch center is cause for concern, and safety of both first responders and the citizens of Freeport and it's our sincerest hope that you would take these issues seriously.
And I just want to apologize. I did not realize that you wanted to speak on something that was an agenda item, so I apologize. You should have had an opportunity to speak earlier.
That's all right.
Sorry that you had to sit through the
It's a
whole
nice
thing.
break from the condo talk. Also for clarification, I believe you guys voted on item number 13. Is the vacation accrual only if it's denied, that's allowed to be extended, or if vacation's not denied? I missed the wording on that, and I don't have a agenda.
I think we're probably going to have to get back with you on an answer, just because it's not our format to dialogue.
Okay.
I just wanted to apologize because
No,
I
that's
didn't realize that you were on that topic.
I missed that, that's why I was asking.
If you want to leave your notes.
Okay.
Okay.
Certainly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very much right.
And then the last one that was signed up was Stephen Lafferty. Stephen, did you still want to speak?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Tom, how you doing? My name is Stephen Lafferty, and I live at 1514 West Stover Street. And my wife and I have been citizens of Freeport for about 50 years now. And my loving bride of 44 years is sitting right over here. But I won't tell you which one she is. I'll let you guess and figure out who that might be. But I'm also a part-time leprechaun, and some of you may not recognize me without my leprechaun costume or a pint of, dare I say, Bud Light in my hand. But anyways, usually I speak extemporaneously. I don't read notes, but seeing that I've only got 3 minutes here, actually now 2 minutes and 40 seconds, I'm going to read a few of the notes that I wanted to make sure that I shared with you. And like many of you, like so many of you with your dedicated service and commitment to our community, we all serve on boards or commissions, or we try to do what we can to improve the quality of life in our community. And I had such a great opportunity on being on the Planning Commission. And I also had my good fortune as past chair of the commission, along with our team of commissioners and staff and dedicated volunteers in the community, of creating the 10-year comprehensive plan. And it was an exciting exercise to capture the 10-year vision of our community while outlining the parameters to help guide and ensure meaningful and sustainable growth. This was 175 pages, but the comprehensive plan was adopted on September 21st of 2020. And regarding the resolution to approve the final plat of the Park Preserve subdivision is what I wanted to spend just a moment on. And I do have some concerns and just wanted to share a little bit of history and perspective. I've been chair of the Planning Commission. A lot of times I'd be the one that would be allowing the public to speak. I've been at this podium before as the consultant on the group health plan for the city of Freeport, and other times I've come as a member of the public. But I just wanted to share with you a little bit of the history, because I wanted to just pop up and say earlier discussions, well, this happened or that happened. But there is some history and some perspective here that I think we really need to understand. And one of those is that the commission, when it was originally voted on for the subdivision, the Planning Commission voted to approve it on a 3-2 vote. And there were two, at that time, there were two recuses. The Zoning Board of Appeals voted not to approve, and also after that time, shortly after that, it went to the staff, and they recommended to not approve. But regardless, the council went ahead and voted to approve this for whatever reason. But regardless, for the record, I'm like everyone else in this room. We stand for development. We want development to happen. But again, there's got to be certain parameters. And I'm not here to talk about the plat or the EPA requirements or all these kinds of things. I'm here to talk a little bit more about the spirit of the Planning Commission and what we really tried to achieve in the comprehensive plan. And that really was the nuts and bolts in my mind and how I relate to things. And the concern I have is, quite candidly, we've got too many buildings in too small of a period, or too small area to really have this thing make sense, in my humble opinion.
Stephen, could you wrap up your thoughts? You way
Okay.
over on your 3 minutes.
And all I want to say, lastly, is this part of Denver Drive is a Freeport neighborhood showcase. It's a sanctuary, identical only to Woodside Drive. It offers such inviting park-like venue not only for residents but visitors alike. Lastly, this project would create such an adverse impact to the sanctity of this neighborhood, and subsequently it runs contrary to what I feel is in the spirit of the city's comprehensive plan. Thank you, and everyone enjoy a Bud Light later tonight.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Ashley? Ashley?
Ashley Howman, I just want to do a quick clarification on the ordinance 2023-23 in regards to 1201 West Empire Street. That property has been purchased and was purchased as an R6 building. It is being requested that zoning be changed to commercial. Nothing can be done in the building as far as business operations until that property is zoned commercial. So we cannot enter into having a business in that location until the zoning is changed. So just clarifying that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
First, if you don't mind, Attorney, the agenda was approved with 15 on the agenda. And then I was going to talk about it, and you said, well, it's not, you're going to take it off, which was really improper, wasn't it? Wouldn't it have been time to pull 15 off before the agenda was approved?
Sir, again, public comment is not a Q&A session, so I can talk to you after the.
Okay, I want, because there is a larger issue, Mr. Duckman. You put the notice for the public hearing for the Planning Commission improperly in the paper, and it was dismissed. Oh, it's okay because it says zoning board, but it's really a Planning Commission, but we don't care about that. Tonight in the agenda, it reads that we're going to approve the subdivision. Why is that? It wasn't for the subdivision, it was for the condominium, so that's very confusing for the public. This development applied for an enterprise zone and TIF district. I don't know how the council doesn't understand, that's for distressed areas, and to call that area distressed is absurd. That is for places where there's tons of distressed places in this town, and we do not need to use our tax dollars out there. Absolutely not. The other thing is, when I was at the Planning Commission, I was so disappointed because Attorney Cox basically turned it into, what happened tonight? Well, we're not going to look, don't look at the planning of this whole thing. Just look narrowly if this thing applies to ordinances, which is baloney. What's the purpose of the Planning Commission except to look at it and say, does it fit into the overall plan? Does it fit into the, what we spent hours and hours coming up with for this town? And obviously at the Planning Commission, I couldn't speak up again because it was over. There was no more time. And I was struck. And unfortunately, most of the members of the Planning Commission were new. They don't know the history. They didn't know the questions to ask, and they were absolutely stuck in that little narrow, okay, this is all you're really looking at, which gave them an out. They knew the controversy. They absolutely knew that they really didn't like it. However, they got the out from Attorney Cox. Oh, no, don't worry about the bigger picture. Just look at the narrow. We cannot miss the forest for the trees. We absolutely have to have better planning. We have to have better vision. And it starts at this council, and it starts with this council getting, the people's comments. Thank you, Mr. Monroe, for all of your comments, and I absolutely hope that we can do something. This project is not done, and we have to make sure that whatever else goes on with it, it actually is in a positive light. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Tommy?
I'm going to miss Matt Summers. He does a good job on that police chief. And we're going to miss him when we go back to Tonawanda.
I agree, Tommy.
And Dwayne, you do a good job speaking.
Thank you very much.
And Chris Schinkelberg, you do. We're gonna miss Matt Summers when he. And you get to own the place, right? You get to be the police boss now.
You're right.
Thank you, Tommy. Any other public comments this evening? Yes, Mary Ann?
This isn't the first project of this nature. It is of this financial amount. But shortly after I moved to Freeport, they went to do a NeighborWorks revitalization of 4 neighborhoods. And the majority of that revitalization has equated to demolition and not taking the funding that was provided to rehabilitate houses and make them affordable, and then improve neighborhoods with the increased tax revenue because you could do better water and sewer, and the list goes on. Curb and gutter. So you had the East Side, you had Indian Heights, you had Piety Hill, and Douglas Clark. All I see in those neighborhoods are not improved properties. I see demolished properties, reduced tax revenue, higher overhead for the public. And this project is viable if it's subsidized. If it's such a great project, the people that will be owning the property have the revenue that the citizens do not have and the businesses do not have. So they should do it and incorporate everything they need to for the water, the sidewalks, the snow removal, everything. The public should not be subsidizing it. And who's on the hook if it goes bad?
Thank you. Any other public comments this evening? Madam Clerk, could you please read item number 22 for the record?
Executive session tonight will be pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. Also pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C11, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the findings shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to make a motion to continue this executive session items to the next regular scheduled council meeting.
I would argue that. Will only be a few minutes.
Well, I made the motion. I tried.
Is there a motion to enter into executive?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Barr.
Aye.
Borneman.
No.
Monroe. Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-2